You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
May be interesting to revisit the chat we had with Rob Gell. We had actually tremendous interest in that, and believe it or not, overseas interest from expat Australians, had some from Hong Kong, Singapore, some from Israel, some from Europe, who were vitally interested in his chat about climate change and global warming. Now, let me say this before we start. We are not disagreeing with anything Rob said, because he's a star and an expert and he had all the information, but we're just canvassing some other suggestions that people offered as to why the climate might be changing. We're not saying they're correct, and we've disbelieved nothing of what Rob said, and we'll have him back again and he might like to answer some of this. But here's the first thing. Someone said, did you ever think that climate change might be influenced by, wait for this, Don, the sun? The sun, here's a question for you, and you won't know the answer to this because I didn't. How big do you reckon the sun is in relation to the earth? Just have a stab at that. And this
it's huge. I know that from science at school.
Yes.
No, huge. I don't know. It'd be millions of times bigger than the
That's
Earth.
Well done, Don. 1.3 million Earths, think about that, can fit into the sun. And when there's a sunspot, which puts out those solar flares, those solar flares are as big as the Earth. And this was one of the points they said, why wouldn't that have an influence over the years on climate? And the climate change, which I thought was a reasonable question to put. And then they said about volcanoes. I think I brought this up, volcanoes and earthquakes. Why wouldn't they have an influence on climate? And then I looked up, I don't know if this is right, but this is what it says. I looked up how many active volcanoes there are in the world. It says that there are if I can find this where I put it, it says there are, good God, where have I written? It says that there are 1,000 active volcanoes in the world.
1,000?
That's what it says. Now, I don't know what
I thought the fiery ring started down in not South America, maybe Mexico, goes up through Los Angeles. It's on a fault line. I think it's called the San Andreas fault line, and then goes up through Alaska, comes down through Japan, through Asia, and I think it does touch down through Australia.
I don't think it touches down through Australia to the north of Australia, up in the Philippines.
Well, we've got fault lines through Frankston and also Wonthaggi.
No, but fault line, I'm talking about volcanoes.
Oh, volcanoes. So but I'm talking about a fault line
maybe the 1,000 active volcanoes means they could potentially be active. I don't know what that means, but I don't know how big it has to be to have stuff coming out of it like a geyser. I don't know if that's called a volcano, but they said surely that going into the atmosphere on a daily basis, 1,000 of them, would have something to do with climate change.
Well, you just have to go and see if you've been to a volcano, which are up in Bali, but even going to the...
Bali, that's right.
Even going to New Zealand to see the springs over there, the sulphur that's coming out of those on a continual day and night. I mean, that's adding to the atmosphere, isn't it?
So they saying that this could have something to do with climate change rather than humans doing it?
I think humans contribute. And what I would have liked to have asked Rob Gell, but I wasn't on the ball last week, were practical things that we as a people can do to overcome the severity of the climate in Australia.
So then they said, do you know how hot the sun is in its middle? Well, you wouldn't know this because I didn't know it. I looked it up. 27 million degrees. 27 million degrees, and on its surface, it's 10,800 degrees.
So what's that got to do with climate change?
Because if you consider that is the heat of that thing that is 1.3 million times bigger than the Earth, surely it would have something to do with the climate on this planet over the years, over the decades, over the centuries, and of course it's changing. It's just how much it influences what it's changing because the...
Are we getting closer to the sun?
I don't think so.
Are we moving away from the sun?
Well, I have no idea.
The Earth's orbit I'm talking about.
Yes, I don't know that, Donald. But that would be a good point. If you would only have to marginally, some degrees, move closer, or the Earth would have to tilt very little on its axis to be affected by by the Arctic. The polar caps would have to be only affected a small margin if the Earth tilted in a very small capacity. And then
we're talking, John. I would like to see practical things done to address the problem here in Australia. And one is water. And I believe that we've got a lot of areas that are not being utilised because of lack of water and the extreme climate that we do experience here in Australia. Now, I go back to ancient Egyptians, Romans, I think the Babylonians, transport of water by aqueduct. Why can't we do something with water here in Australia? And I mentioned last week about a scheme bringing water down from Queensland. But
is that got anything to do with climate change?
No, I'm saying how we combat droughts. Now,
that's fair enough.
And they're blaming droughts on climate change.
Yes.
The fires on climate change. But is it a fact that we don't burn off the undergrowth with regard to the forests?
Of course it is, isn't it?
Now, the people that were here before us, the indigenous people, used to burn off, and they were 7-year cycle. Exactly
vegetation.
Right. Exactly.
So
now, why can't we learn from them?
Well, maybe people don't want to actually point those things out because it doesn't fit their narrative.
Well,
I'm not talking about Rob Gell.
Well, it's called mosaic fire burning, and it was done down in our shire, down on the peninsula, but the council in their wisdom have decided not to do it. And there are areas down there that used to be systematically burnt and regenerated.
So once again, I said, why isn't nuclear a sensible alternative to any of this clean energy, cheap? And Rob said, once again, absolutely accurately said, well, it costs a lot of money to construct those. They're very costly to construct. And I said, well, everything's surely costly to construct if you're going to, in the end run, get some benefit out of it. And I said, he said there are 80 nuclear power plants in France. Well, it says here there are 56. Not really much of a difference, but it's just what figures you go on, and why wouldn't 56 or 80 nuclear power plants be a good way to produce energy while we're waiting for...
Well, can't we harness the sun, for number one? I know there's solar panels, but can't we take it to a bigger...
But he said we are. He said...
Well, I understand, but can't we do it... Is there a vested interest by the coal industry in regard to solar energy?
Well, I put that question to him, Rob, and he said that man, Gupta, whatever his name was created...
Well, he was doing it in Port
That's
Pirie,
right. He was
mill.
harnessing the sun and solar. And I said that China have a lot of coal-fired power stations. It says here, now I don't know if this is true, they have 1,000. They have 1,004 coal-fired power stations. I don't know if that's right. I don't know how big a coal-powered fire station has to be before it's classified as a power station. Might be just a little thing. I don't know. But 1,000, if you're talking about 1,000 coal-fired power stations, surely that has something to do with the carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere.
But then again, apparently the coal that we are exporting from Queensland is of such high quality that the emissions are less than the brown coal that we have, for example, down here in Victoria.
Yes, Donald. And if that is the case, how harmful or harmless could a low-burning carbon monoxide coal be to the earth or to the environment? I mean, it's not ideal, but I tell you what, it's a hell of a lot better than it used to be, isn't it? We are talking about things we have no idea about, but these are some of the things people have contacted us from overseas about all these things. The sun, the earth, which the centre of the earth is the same heat as the surface of the sun. So something must be going on if you've got volcanoes bubbling out crap all over the world, or most of the world. So there we are. So that's we might get him back on, because he was very interesting and created a lot of interest. So then I see, Donald, a 15-year-old boy was taken by a shark up at Wooleye Beach in New South Wales. And not the activists, but people said, oh, well, we better go out on a shark cull and try and... So where does that start and end? It is a tragedy, but you're in the domain of the shark. And if, say, surfers keep getting taken by sharks because the shark's natural food is being taken for whatever reason, global warming or pollution, and they start honing in on human swimmers and surfers, and say 50 in a month are taken from surfers, where do we go from there? Do we stop people swimming? Or do you say you swim at your own peril? Or do we cull out all the sharks?
You make that decision yourself, and that's one reason I gave up surfing, because of the unknown that was out there. And once you get out there, you're in a foreign domain, especially when you go skin diving, which I also did, and you get down very deep. You're just in foreign territory, and it is... I found it very daunting going down there, because you're in someone else's area of which you've got no control over.
So exactly, but...
So you make that decision as to whether you wish to do it. Now, realise the dangers. If you want to go surfing, realise the dangers.
But I couldn't agree with you more, but someone is not going to make that decision. They're not going to leave it to the person to make a personal decision about when they go swimming. They think that if humans keep getting taken by sharks, it's just a question of how many before we either stop people swimming, so you don't have...
I think that's an individual decision. If you wish to do it, that's the danger.
But I'm saying it won't be left to an individual decision. They'll either try and cull all the sharks...
which they shouldn't do.
So when you say that, they'll say, oh, well, haven't you got any interest in saving human life? But
No. It's not that.
Do you know how many sharks are killed a year, approximately, for mainly shark fin soup and for food? But mainly shark fin soup. 200 million sharks a year are culled out of the ocean.
I think
mainly delicacies.
I'm glad they've put a moratorium on the bay, Port Phillip Bay. I think that was led by Rex Hunt. I remember as a young boy going off Safety Beach, only a matter of 100 metres, and you could see flathead, which were a foot long, sitting on the sandbank. You cannot see that, and they were huge. You cannot see the size of those fish anymore in the bay. They've been taken out of the bay. The bay has been stripped. Now, what we're doing to the ocean is on a similar thing, that we're taking all the whale fishing and whatever else. We don't know what's going on under there because we can't see.
Now, here's a choice. I've got some if questions here, incidentally, Donald. You
didn't happen to watch the football while you're at it on the weekend?
I didn't, but I notice Kevin Bartlett has a very similar opinion to you.
About what?
About the interchange. He said the football was just really in a parlous state because of the way it's played. He said two coaches, your coach, the Hawthorn coach, and the coach of Richmond, coach of
Damien Hardwick.
I was going to say Damien Hardwick, and the Hawthorn coach,
Alistair Clarkson,
said that the game was a shocker. And Bartlett says, and he said it on this forum before, that it's because of the extraordinary amount of interchange players and the confusion of what's going on. And you are the same as saying that. You're saying 19th and 20th man should be reintroduced and have more people statically playing on the ground rather than coming on and off and the game being disjointed, aren't you?
Well, I am, but I'm also looking at Hawthorn. Hawthorn's receiving a lot of criticism, or it's being put under the microscope. Now, it's a cycle that goes through, and it happens in football, and it's not coaches that make a team. They have an influence, but every coach that's won a premiership has had a good team. Now, in our time, you've got Alan Jones, who had unbelievable success, or a lot of success at Hawthorn, goes to Richmond, doesn't have the same success. David Parkin, he had it at Carlton and Hawthorn. Fitzroy didn't have the same success. Tony Jewell, it just goes on. Alex Jeslenka. If you haven't got the players, you're not a good coach. Now, Hawthorn at the moment haven't got the players. They've got an ageing list, and the younger fellows are not up to what they should be because they had late draft picks. And I would say that Hawthorn are going to go down even further than what they are now, and they'll have to go, and the direction has got to come from the board as to the philosophy or the policy they adopt in going forward, and that is go back to the draft. And they did this prior to Alistair Clarkson coming in, and they got a batch of very good young players.
So here's my question to you. If your stock is dropping off in quality, is it incumbent on the coach, not necessarily your coach, Alistair Clarkson, but let's speak about that. Is it incumbent on the coach to get them to play a different style of football to accommodate the talent or lack of it of the people on the park at any one time? Or do we just keep playing the same football that gave us success in the past, chipping it round, holding the ball, waiting for someone to make a lead, kicking it backwards? Or should we try a different style of football?
If you haven't got talent, you can't do anything with regard to style. If the talent is not there, if the guys haven't got the ability to execute the plan, well...
So you'd tailor the plan to accommodate the skills that the players have, whether they be little or none.
I think the policy's got to be set by the board because coaches, in a lot of cases,
I can't believe you said that.
Why?
You're saying that board members sitting up in the top office around the mahogany desk decide the way and the pattern, the paradigm.
No. They just said if you're the club is at, well, we'll take Hawthorn.
So they're recruiting rationale.
Well, yes. Right now, Hawthorn have got to look at a picture and where are they going. And I think the policy's got to come, or the directive's got to come from the board that this is what we're on. We've got to bite the bullet for maybe 8 years, and then you look at an 8 year, and you can only do that by going to the draft and getting young players. You cannot get recycled. On Saturday, on last weekend, they played 14, came from other clubs. And they've got a very, very old list. And I think...
So you're criticising Hawthorn for...
No, I'm just pointing out that this is the situation they're in right at the moment. But the other thing that I was interested in, and I didn't really take much notice, have you seen the way the boundary umpires now throw the ball in?
No.
They sling it over their... If they're right-handed, they sling it over their left shoulder.
And does that matter?
Well, I think it does. I wonder why, because I used to make my move.
Yes.
Maybe it's a period you've got to adjust to.
Yes.
Because the umpires had when we played, they threw it directly in over the head. So you made your move when the ball was at the bottom of their throw, just prior to them making the throw.
Yes, Donald.
You didn't?
No, I did. But
I looked at the umpire. I didn't worry about the opponent. I knew where my opponent was, but I looked at when the umpire was going to release the ball. So my move was when the ball was at the bottom, just prior to him throwing it over his head. Then I'd make the move to get my position.
So you can't decide now?
Well, I can't. Maybe it's a time of getting used to, because they walk across the boundary line, then they take 2 steps or 1 step and then fling it and turn their body at the same time.
Well, there you are. You've identified how they do it. So when you're playing out on the field and you see them taking 1 steps and then turning their body and slinging it over their opposing shoulder.
Well, why have they changed that, though?
Well, maybe for OH&S, maybe it's not as taxing on their body. Maybe they get more consistency. Maybe they can throw it in further. Maybe, I don't know why they do it, but they're doing it for a reason, probably so that fatigue doesn't set in. It's easier to do it. I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I only watched the one game, the Hawthorn game, and I didn't look at too many other games. But I'll have a look this week and see if they all do it.
Will you? And so I'm not. Do you think I'm being
facetious?
Pernickety? You think I'm being
cynical?
Pernickety. I'm picking out.
I know what pernickety means.
I'm not sure. So. Why, if you were rucking, standing out there and you saw him pick it up, the umpire or the woman, the umpire, Well, does the boundary umpires women? No, probably because they can't sling it in far enough or something. I don't know. Maybe that's why they do it, because they get tired and they can't throw it in consistently.
But
it's easy.
They have two of them now, don't they, running the boundary? 4 of them?
Of course they do. They've had 2 of them running the boundary for a long time, haven't they?
How can you get tired?
I don't. Well, there'd be a reason why they're doing it, wouldn't there? I'm sure there'd be a reason why they're doing it. Have you finished on the football? Could you tell me this? Now, there's no football being played in Victoria. You know, the MC, like none. So there's 3 grounds, isn't there, as I understand it? Geelong.
Geelong, yeah.
The Marvel
and the 2
and
stadiums
MCG.
in Melbourne, yes.
And we've got all the players billeted out in the various states. And yet we can't play more than 2 people. How can the competition continue?
But if we're going into stage 4 lockdown, hang on, don't you think the AFL are in front of the curve? Are they getting the information and they're continually on the move of what's happening? Now there's going to be, apparently tonight, stage 4 lockdown. Now that means that you just couldn't play football anyway. So I think it's better they go
There's
into
another,
stage.
how many cases? There's another 277 cases been located today, and there's an influx on the hospital system and the beds for the coronavirus, because the more people you test, the more cases you're going to find, and this is what's happening. So if stage 4 comes in, we may as well pack it in, Donald. We may as well pack it in. It's the world as we know it has ceased to exist.
Well, at least they've got places to look after these people with the virus. I don't think the hospital at Berwick's been opened yet, but that's available. And also the exhibition buildings are set up, I believe, if there's an influx of coronavirus.
Now, I'm going to leave one of the topics I want to talk about till the end, because you'll say, oh, don't talk about it, but it's important we talk about it for various reasons. But so I won't do it at the minute. I see Daniel Lee is a white supremacist. And just tell me, would this be your attitude? A white supremacist in America. He shot dead a gun owner, his wife, and the bloke's daughter, the gun owner's daughter. So he murdered 3 people. And they were going to execute him. And the people of the aggrieved party couldn't come to watch the execution because of the Chinese coronavirus. They weren't allowed to travel, so they...
Why would you want to go and watch the execution?
Well, that's my first question. Maybe you want to see the man who shot
Is this the first one that's for 17 years, or the first execution?
First, maybe you'd want to go and see the bloke who shot your next of kin, actually see him die. That'd give you some enjoyment. But they said they couldn't come to watch him die because the Chinese coronavirus didn't allow them to travel, so they put it off. I reckon you'd make every effort to get there, wouldn't you? Just wear a mask and just self-isolate and go and watch him be...
No, I wouldn't.
Wouldn't you? Wouldn't
You'd consciously go and watch somebody die.
I would consciously go and watch someone that killed my father or my brother, his wife and his daughter. I would actually enjoy going to watch him die. Yes, I would. It would give me closure. It would be a cathartic experience. Are you not for capital punishment, Donald?
I suppose when you put it like that...
When it's beyond...
You think, yes, I'm thinking, you've put an argument to me.
Not when there's... it could be that someone is a murderer. When it is a heinous crime of evil intent and it is beyond... it is beyond chatting about. It's obviously it happened. Why does your money, should it go to keeping people alive who've given up their right to live on the planet? That's my point. Why?
We are a sophisticated animal, aren't we?
Well,
Humans
the people who've committed those crimes aren't.
I understand, but what I just said to you, we're just one rung above an animal, aren't we? And we're just a sophisticated being.
Well, we are the only thing that sets us apart from any other thing on the planet is we do more than just live to eat and have sex. We do a couple of other things into the bargain. No other animal species does that.
But we're still animalistic when we get down to the basics.
My word, you're no more animalistic than you, Donald. I've seen you out on the tear. Hunting.
What?
How everything, anything that was standing erect
Give
and
us
breathing.
a few ifs. You got any ifs?
I'm just going to. Would you? So here's it. Just shows you.
Give us an if.
Just a minute, Donald, please. Have you got anything at all that you were going to bring up?
No.
Or bring up the equestrian again. So here's a man paid $104,000 for a bottle of 1951 Grange Hermitage Shiraz.
How much?
104,000. Why would you do that?
I don't understand.
Why would you drink it if you paid that much?
Is that a red or a white? Red, isn't it?
Red.
Grange?
Shiraz is Grange is Shiraz.
I'm not interested. It doesn't interest me.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't drink.
I don't drink either. But
you don't drink now?
No, I haven't drunk for 10 years.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Why? Because of
you made a fool of you. I've seen you.
Yeah.
You made a fool of yourself a few times.
Yeah, no, of course I have. So do you play the guitar?
Would have loved to.
Oh, well, you don't.
I would have loved to. That's one thing I regret. I asked my father if I could. It was a Melbourne Banjo Club, I think it was. He used to advertise on the back of... Remember the comics? We used to get
Happy
Superman,
Hammond.
Batman, and they used to advertise. It was in Swanston Street, and I had to travel from Box Hill to Melbourne. It was the only
Melbourne
place you could
Banjo
learn,
Club, holy
and my
mackerel.
father wouldn't let me
So
do
the only reason I asked you
I
that
would
is
have
if you're
loved
not...
to have played the guitar.
If you're not interested in someone paying $104,000 for a bottle of Grange because you don't drink, an Australian paid $9 million for the man we mentioned earlier
Jimi Hendrix?
The man we mentioned earlier who died at 27.
Hang on, Jimi Hendrix?
No.
Oh, come on, I've got to think of it. No, Morrison was the lead singer.
Yeah, well, you've
Janis
mentioned
Joplin,
two of them. The
Amy
only man you
Winehouse.
haven't
Hang
mentioned.
on. Kurt
Cobain.
Kurt Cobain.
Or Kurt Cobain or whatever you like to call him.
Nirvana.
Bloke paid $9 million for his 1959 guitar. Yeah. My question would be, how do you know it was his guitar? How would you know that?
DNA?
Would it have a certificate of DNA from a reputable company that says Kurt Cobain's DNA is on this guitar or its strings? How would you know that? Would you pay $9 million? If it, probably you would. You wouldn't. You
pay $500,000 for cars out the back there. So what's the difference?
Yeah, well, I can drive them. I can't play a guitar.
Well, I can't see what the point of paying that much money for a car. Everybody's
$9
different.
million. I haven't paid $9 million for a guitar. Have you got any things there that you wanted to bring up?
$1 million. Play
what?
one.
What's that?
You've paid one.
One what?
$1 million.
Yeah, I said I haven't paid $9 million for a car.
No, but have you paid $1 million?
Well, why is that relevant?
Well, how much would you spend on a car? If you liked the car, how much would you spend on a car?
My point is, if you paid $9 million for a...
answer my question.
No.
Why?
Well, I will, but hang on.
How would you...
Because it's not a correct... If you paid $9 million for Kurt Cobain's guitar, you're not going to play it, are you? You're going to put it up on a wall somewhere.
Well, you don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know what the man's
going to do with it? You reckon the bloke is paid $9 million for Kurt Cobain's car is going to actually take it to his friend's place and strum a bit of music, a bit of hootenanny music, Donald, do you? Or play seriously. He's going to put it in a cabinet, in a glass case, and someone will say, that's Kurt Cobain's guitar. And someone will say, how do you know it is?
What's the difference between that and you buying artwork? You sit and you look at it. There's not much difference.
No, there's not a lot of difference. You can hang a guitar up on your wall at home and as a piece of art, and you can hang I presume you buy art with a view to it appreciating, but the guitar might appreciate.
So that's why you bought your art as an investment?
No. bought it because I enjoyed it, looking at it. So the man might enjoy looking at the guitar. So take your point, Donald. Would you like an if question?
Love one. What about Hannah Manlakova? No, we won't go there, will we?
No, we will. So we will. So if
Barney
you
McCusker.
if you could be, all right. Here's the first question: if you could be a piece of sporting apparel or equipment, what would you like to be? If you could be a piece of sporting apparel or equipment, what would you like to be?
Well, apparently Barney McCusker would like to be the second service ball of
Anna Kournikova.
Yes.
So, Anna Kournikova's second ball of her service.
Serve, yes.
No, that's good. That'd take a lot to beat that. So, if you could have changed, here's an if you could have changed one thing about your first, don't make these up, these are in this book. If you could have changed one thing about your first sexual experience, what would it be?
Not having it.
Well, mine would be I'd like someone who have been there at the time to have it with me. So, had someone with me at the time would have been my answer to that. So here's, you say never had it, Donald. Well, you rip the top off it on your own. Wouldn't you like to have someone with you? Man, woman or beast? If you could discover one item that belonged to someone in history, whose would it be and what would it be? If you could discover one item, I don't have to go back too far. This is quite a serious one for me, but I don't have to go back.
Okay, give me yours.
I'd like Jeffrey Epstein's diary. The video collection of Jeffrey Epstein. Because that woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, there's no doubt Jeffrey Epstein was murdered by law enforcement or someone. There's no doubt of that.
No, you can't say law enforcement.
Well, people in the jail killed him. I don't know who else would be in the jail beside law enforcement people. There's no doubt he was killed. And the woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, if she's not killed, it will be extraordinary to see just how much... You
didn't happen to see the documentary on, just talking about killing people, on Peter Falcone. Andrew Fraser is conducting an investigation, I suppose, and it was aired on Channel 9, casting doubts over the case. You didn't happen to see that on Sunday night?
No.
There's a second part to it as well. So there are a lot of issues coming up, just like you mentioned about Epstein. We don't know what happened, and they're starting
What's
to raise
the theory?
doubts.
What's Mr. Rule's theory?
Not Andrew Rule.
wasn't
Andrew
it
Fraser.
Andrew?
No, Andrew Fraser.
Oh,
Did I say Rule or Fraser?
No, Andrew Fraser. He's an ex-lawyer.
Yes.
Who,
Yes.
See, the man was
yes,
involved with
drugs, and he served
cocaine.
time in jail.
Yes.
Yes, and he's just raising a lot of queries as to, I forget the fellow's name who was charged with them. Bradley Murdoch.
Yes.
Was charged with that murder, and he's been in jail for 15 years now, but there are a few holes maybe in the case.
Is there?
He's just putting them out there at the moment. So we'll see what happens in the second part next week.
Oh.
Give that man a microphone, will you?
No. All right, I'm going to bring up my last topic because I find this fascinating. Black Lives Matter.
Oh, no, please. Please.
See, now this is the trouble. This is, you don't even know what I'm going to say about it, and yet you got
a problem with Asperger's.
You don't even know what I'm going to say about it, and you've jumped into the lifeboat because you think we shouldn't be able to discuss this. This is not about race. This is about, I'm going to say, give what Black Lives Matter have petitioned the Ford Motor Company you listening?
Yep.
In America, to stop making police cars because they want to defund the police and they think they're trying to get rid of police forces as we know them in America. And they're trying to defund the police, and they've put pressure on Ford Motor Company to stop making cars for the police.
Well, can I go one further and say I would like to see the police receiving a lot of criticism. I just wonder if the police would get sick of it one day and just go on strike. What would the community say then?
They ostensibly have gone on strike, Donald, because all these riots in America by various groups, Black Lives...
Well, they have stopped, though, the riots, haven't they? A lot of the governors in various states are trying to bring in laws, enact laws to defund the police, and that is... we mentioned what they want to replace them with, social workers going around trying to knock on doors. I noticed that a domestic disturbance, police were called to a domestic disturbance by neighbours because there was a huge brouhaha going on in a house. They knocked on the door and the bloke who opened the door shot the two police dead. If you've got social workers going around there without safety vests or even the authority of a badge or a police car, how is that going to work in a civilised community? So my point is, do you agree with the Black Lives Matter people insisting or petitioning Ford to stop making police cars? And I have to think about, why are you thinking about that? And you say, I shouldn't bring that up. Why shouldn't I bring that up? That is just nonsensical. You can't make cars for the police to go around and try and enforce the law. So they're trying to dilute the effect of police in the community, and we're all against police brutality, and that's how the kneeling started and all that, and we're all for that. And if that saved black lives, if their campaign saves black lives, but it's nothing to do with saving black lives, it's a political agenda. Do you know if you subscribe to the Black Lives Matter campaign, you get sent to a website which says @blue.com, and @blue.com is the political arm of the Democratic Party, its campaign fund. So it's a political arm of their organisation. Of the Democrat.
Yes, Black Lives is a political arm of the Democratic Party. Now, if Black Lives Matter was about saving black lives, sign me up. I'll donate. Why wouldn't I? But it's not about that. It has morphed into something else. Now, I don't know why we can't discuss that, because if you can't discuss the fact that they want to stop Ford making police cars, why can't we discuss that? That is just so nonsensical. If you want to have law enforcement, if you don't have laws and they're not enforced, you don't have a society, do you?
That's exactly right.
You?
No, I agree with that.
Well,
there's got to be structure in any community.
Yeah,
any community.
And they should be overhauled. The police should be overhauled because they are committing heinous crimes, and those people who commit them, the police will face the full force of the law and they will be dealt with summarily like they should be. But it's not an excuse to go around and burn down the whole country and turn it into an anarchist state. You look at me and you say, oh, don't bring that up. Why can't you discuss that? We're not knocking anyone, really. We're just saying this is where it's got to. If you got anything...
Music, Rod.